The suburban streets of Willow Creek had always been meticulously manicured, each lawn a perfect canvas of emerald green, each mailbox a polished sentinel guarding conformity. Life moved predictably here, with HOA newsletters dictating everything from fence height to the exact shade of garden gnome permissible. And yet, for one homeowner, this calm suburban rhythm was about to be disrupted in the most unexpected way. Alex Harper had spent years planning the purchase of his dream car, a Tesla Model S. Its sleek curves, silent electric hum, and state-of-the-art technology represented everything he had worked for. The day it arrived, he parked it in his driveway like a trophy, the sun glinting off the metallic red paint, highlighting every precise line and aerodynamic contour. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, and a few ventured hesitant glances from their sidewalks, eyes filled with admiration or envy, sometimes both. But tranquility in Willow Creek was deceptive. Among the HOA-approved smiles and polite waves lurked a figure notorious for her vigilance over every minor infraction. Margaret Heller, the self-appointed queen of curb appeal, prided herself on controlling the aesthetic and auditory environment of the neighborhood. Her complaints ranged from improperly aligned welcome mats to the faintest hum of an air conditioner she deemed too loud. Yet no one expected that her attention would soon turn to Alex's gleaming Tesla. Within days of the car's arrival, subtle incidents began. A scratch here, a faint scuff there, minor imperfections that could have been blamed on anything. A shopping cart, a branch, or an inattentive neighbor. But Alex, meticulous in documenting every detail, noticed the pattern. And one morning, surveillance footage revealed the culprit. Margaret herself, dragging her keys down the side of the Tesla, her face a mixture of disdain and calculated anger. Her explanation later, if ever offered, would claim it was a test of the paint, but the damage was real, and it stung far deeper than the mere physical scratches. The confrontation that followed was inevitable. The once quiet street erupted with tension, as neighbors whispered behind closed doors, some shielding their faces from the impending drama, others leaning in to watch the spectacle. The Tesla was more than a car now. It had become a symbol, a provocation in the eyes of a woman whose definition of order did not tolerate disruption, especially the disruption of silence. Alex realized that ownership of his dream had come with unexpected battles, and that the serene veneer of Willow Creek masked undercurrents capable of shocking even the most patient homeowner. A storm was brewing, and it was powered by quiet electric fury. The days following the scratch incident were tense. Alex, armed with cameras and photographic evidence, documented every inch of his Tesla. The scratches, deep enough to catch the light at specific angles, seemed almost deliberate. The neighborhood buzzed with speculation, though most residents stayed indoors, wary of Margaret's wrath. Rumors flew like wildfire. Some claimed she had a history of petty vandalism, others insisted she wielded her HOA authority like a weapon. For Alex, the experience was personal. The Tesla was more than a car. It represented years of sacrifice and ambition. Each scratch felt like an intrusion into his hard-earned life, a violation of both property and personal peace. The sense of injustice was amplified by Margaret's audacity, her calm, almost imperious demeanor in surveillance footage, as she traced her keys along the paint, spoke volumes about her sense of entitlement. It was not a crime of passion, it was a crime of principle in her mind, a self-righteous act to restore what she perceived as moral and aesthetic order. The HOA became a battlefield. Notices and complaints circulated like confidential memos in a corporate war, often exaggerated for maximum impact. Margaret's insistence that Alex's car was too quiet to exist peacefully in a neighborhood governed by constant ambient noise became the rallying cry of the small, vocal faction supporting her. Arguments over decibel levels of electric engines were debated with the intensity of constitutional disputes. Alex remained stoic, aware that any public confrontation could escalate beyond repair, yet determined not to surrender his prized possession to petty tyranny. Meanwhile, the Tesla took on an almost symbolic role. It sat in the driveway like a monument to defiance, its silence now an audible statement in a neighborhood accustomed to the rumble of combustion engines. The scratches, while initially a source of anger, became a badge of honor, a testament to the silent war waged against intrusion and entitlement. Social media buzzed as Alex began documenting the unfolding events, sharing footage of Margaret's paint test and the subsequent HOA meetings. Comments poured in, some offering sympathy, others condemning him for daring to own a silent vehicle in a world that Margaret sought to control. The tension reached its peak one evening when Alex noticed Margaret's silhouette lingering near his property line, binoculars in hand, as if studying his every movement. It was a reminder that in Willow Creek, no act went unnoticed, no transgression too small, and no silence was safe. The quiet of the Tesla was now a provocation, a challenge to a woman who demanded dominance over decibels, aesthetics, and control. The neighborhood had entered a new era, defined not by community or peace, but by scratches, surveillance, and simmering resentment. It wasn't long before the scratches became the catalyst for more aggressive behavior. Alex's once peaceful mornings, spent admiring the car and tending his garden, now began with cautious surveillance checks. Cameras were placed strategically, motion sensors activated, and lights timed to give the illusion of constant presence. Each beep and flash from the security system felt like a small victory in an ongoing psychological battle. Margaret, for her part, seemed unfazed. Reports of her frequent HOA patrols intensified, as though the neighborhood itself had become her private stage. Every glance at Alex's driveway, every whispered comment to other residents, served as reinforcement of her self-assigned role as arbiter of propriety. The scratches were no longer merely physical, they were symbolic, a reminder that control and power in Willow Creek could manifest in subtle, calculated aggression. Neighbors watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. Some sympathized with Alex, sending supportive messages or leaving small notes of encouragement on his doorstep. Others stayed away, wary of becoming collateral damage in what had transformed into a quiet but relentless turf war. Social media amplified the tension further. Clips of the key-dragging incident went viral, sparking debates over HOA overreach, the ethics of silent cars, and suburban entitlement. Alex's Tesla became an emblem of resistance, a vehicle whose silence was both literal and figurative, a challenge to authoritarian precision. But Margaret's response was equally strategic. Complaints were formalized in HOA letters, each one couched in bureaucratic language, carefully crafted to appear reasonable while reinforcing her grievances. She argued that the Tesla's presence violated community peace, and that its quiet operation required regulation. These letters, while technically baseless, carried the weight of authority in a neighborhood accustomed to compliance. Each new notice was a reminder that in Willow Creek, the rules were flexible, interpretation subjective, and enforcement personal. Alex remained resolute. The Tesla, now adorned with its battle scars, became a centerpiece of his campaign for justice, a reminder that ownership came with responsibility and with courage. Cameras captured every step, every movement, every encounter with Margaret, creating an irrefutable record of harassment. The escalation was no longer just about scratches. It had become a broader struggle over personal freedom, dignity, and the right to exist peacefully in a meticulously curated suburban landscape. The tension reached a fever pitch when Alex decided to confront the issue publicly, documenting his efforts for social media. He understood that transparency was a weapon, that exposure could counter intimidation, and that a viral narrative might be the only way to challenge the entrenched authority of a single, relentless neighbor. The stage was set for an inevitable showdown, where scratches and silence would collide with entitlement and control. The moment of public exposure arrived when Alex shared a compilation of surveillance footage online, showing Margaret dragging her keys along the Tesla's pristine paint. The video, titled "Karen Scratches Tesla Because It's Too Quiet," immediately caught fire, drawing tens of thousands of views within hours. The streets of Willow Creek seemed suddenly smaller as virtual spectators weighed in on the incident, some with indignation, others with humor. Margaret's response was predictably defensive. She posted an official statement to the HOA's private network, claiming her actions were unintentional and part of an inspection of paint quality, a narrative that fell flat against the clear, unedited footage circulating online. The contrast between her polished, rehearsed explanation and the raw evidence of deliberate scratching became a point of ridicule, both locally and on broader social media platforms. Neighbors, too, reacted differently. Some who had previously remained silent now spoke openly, expressing frustration over Margaret's behavior and admiration for Alex's courage. Others doubled down, worried that the viral attention might destabilize the community's carefully curated image. Meanwhile, Alex continued to document every development, from the arrival of new scratches to HOA meeting minutes, creating a comprehensive record of harassment that would be difficult to ignore or dismiss. The Tesla itself became a symbol of resilience. Each scratch told a story, each reflective gleam a reminder of the conflict, each silent hum a subtle act of defiance. It was no longer simply a car, it was a statement, a testament to the notion that even in the quietest neighborhoods, individuality and ownership could challenge entrenched authority. The battle between personal freedom and bureaucratic control played out not in courtrooms or council chambers, but on driveways, social media feeds, and in the quiet resistance of one man and his vehicle. Yet Margaret's influence remained formidable. The HOA convened emergency meetings, attempting to reassert control, while Alex's growing online following continued to put pressure on the association. The tension between private authority and public scrutiny created a new dynamic in Willow Creek, one in which scratches, silence, and exposure combined to challenge the foundations of suburban conformity. As the neighborhood divided into factions of support, skepticism, and fear, the quiet war over decibels, aesthetics, and authority entered a new, more volatile phase. What had begun as a minor act of vandalism had evolved into a public spectacle, a social experiment, and a test of endurance, patience, and principle. As the summer sun baked the streets of Willow Creek, the tension surrounding the Tesla escalated to its breaking point. Alex could no longer ignore the quiet, omnipresent scrutiny of Margaret, whose movements around his property had become increasingly bold. Her daily patrols were no longer subtle. Neighbors reported sightings of her loitering near the driveway, clipboard in hand, as if preparing for a full-scale inspection. The scratches, already etched into the Tesla's sleek frame, had become a battlefield, a visible record of a simmering conflict that had drawn the attention of the entire neighborhood. Alex knew that passive documentation was no longer enough. He prepared a carefully orchestrated plan to confront the harassment head-on while remaining within legal boundaries. Surveillance cameras captured not just scratches but the minutiae of Margaret's presence. The way she lingered, the cadence of her footsteps, the familiar glint of keys in her hand. Alex compiled the footage into a concise, undeniable record, a visual timeline that left no room for doubt. Every drag of her keys, every hesitant glance at the Tesla, was meticulously documented, forming a narrative of calculated interference rather than a mere accident. The online community, now invested in the saga, provided both moral support and tactical advice. Comments suggested involving law enforcement, escalating complaints within the HOA, and sharing evidence publicly. Each suggestion strengthened Alex's resolve. The Tesla had become more than a car. It was now a symbol of quiet resistance, a tangible manifestation of the struggle between personal freedom and the arbitrary authority of a single individual. Every scratch became a badge of honor, every silent engine hum a defiance of Margaret's narrow vision of order. The showdown was inevitable. During a particularly hot afternoon, Alex noticed Margaret approaching with unusual determination. Her body language, aggressive yet calculated, indicated that she had anticipated some confrontation. Cameras were rolling. Neighbors peered cautiously from behind curtains, aware that they were about to witness a defining moment in Willow Creek history. Alex, prepared with his evidence and legal knowledge, remained calm. The Tesla gleamed under the sun, silent, unyielding, and poised for the symbolic battle that was about to unfold. Margaret confronted Alex at the edge of the driveway, pointing and gesturing with a sense of entitlement that had been honed over years of unchecked authority. Her rhetoric, familiar from prior HOA meetings, centered on control, compliance, and the supposed disturbance caused by a silent vehicle. Alex, in contrast, stood firm, his posture measured and deliberate, presenting the surveillance evidence on a tablet for all to see. The visual record of her key dragging could not be denied, even in the language of bureaucracy she revered. The confrontation was tense but controlled, a public spectacle without the chaos of violence, an exhibition of restraint and documentation over intimidation and aggression. Neighbors watched, riveted, as the confrontation unfolded. Some whispered in admiration, recognizing the courage required to confront an authoritarian presence in their midst. Others exchanged uneasy glances, concerned about the fallout within the tightly regulated HOA environment. Social media updates streamed live, capturing the moment for a growing audience who saw in Alex's defiance a reflection of broader struggles: the fight for personal freedom, the right to enjoy one's property without interference, and the challenge of confronting entrenched entitlement. The showdown culminated not in violence but in exposure. Margaret, confronted with irrefutable evidence, was left fumbling for excuses. Her narrative of paint testing appeared hollow against the clear, recorded evidence of deliberate scratches. The balance of power shifted subtly yet decisively. While Margaret still wielded influence within the HOA, the public visibility of her actions had curtailed her freedom to act with impunity. Willow Creek had witnessed a turning point, where documentation, strategic thinking, and restraint triumphed over arbitrary authority. The Tesla, scarred but pristine in function, remained in the driveway as a silent sentinel, a witness to the struggle and a reminder of the power of evidence over intimidation. The neighborhood had been irrevocably changed. The quiet hum of electric engines now carried a message that resonated far beyond the confines of Willow Creek's manicured streets. And yet, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a sense of anticipation lingered, a quiet acknowledgement that while one battle had been won, the war over authority, entitlement, and control was far from over. The aftermath of the Tesla showdown rippled through Willow Creek like a slow-moving storm. Margaret, once untouchable within the HOA's rigid hierarchy, found herself constrained by the public exposure of her actions. Complaints and scrutiny poured in from neighbors who had long felt intimidated but had previously remained silent. Emails and social media posts questioned her judgment, her authority, and the very ethics underpinning her role as enforcer of suburban order. The neighborhood, long characterized by silent conformity, now vibrated with conversation, debate, and cautious liberation. Alex, for his part, maintained a steady presence, documenting every encounter, every notice, and every rumor. The scratches on the Tesla, initially a source of anger and frustration, had been transformed into symbols of resilience, a visible narrative of perseverance in the face of petty tyranny. Legal advice confirmed that Margaret's actions had constituted property damage, harassment, and intimidation, giving Alex a framework to seek restitution while simultaneously preserving his personal safety and integrity. The Tesla itself became something of a legend. Neighbors whispered stories about the silent car that defied the HOA queen, and social media amplified the tale far beyond the confines of Willow Creek. Clips of the confrontation, carefully edited to emphasize strategy, courage, and justice, went viral, inspiring debates over HOA authority, property rights, and suburban entitlement. Alex's story resonated with homeowners everywhere, capturing a universal tension between personal freedom and community control, between quiet resistance and overt aggression. Margaret, constrained by both legal risk and public scrutiny, retreated into a quieter, more cautious role. Her patrols became less frequent, her complaints less bold, and her reputation within the community permanently altered. The HOA itself underwent subtle shifts, as board members recognized the limits of arbitrary enforcement and the necessity of transparency and fairness. The balance of power had shifted, not through violence or confrontation, but through evidence, patience, and the strategic use of public exposure. Alex continued to enjoy his Tesla, its silent hum now a comforting sound rather than a provocation. Every scratch served as a reminder of the battle fought and won, a story etched into the very surface of the vehicle. The neighborhood, while still governed by rules and regulations, now accommodated a greater tolerance for individuality and innovation. Willow Creek had learned a lesson, that even in meticulously curated communities, authority could be challenged, entitlement could be exposed and personal freedom could endure. As the sun set over the perfectly manicured lawns, the Tesla gleamed in quiet defiance, a testament to persistence, strategy, and the enduring power of evidence. Willow Creek would never be the same. And Alex, watching his dream car shimmer under the fading light, understood that the scratches were more than damage. They were proof that in the battle between authority and autonomy, courage and clarity could prevail. The story concluded not with triumphal fanfare, but with a quiet, enduring victory, a demonstration that even the most entrenched entitlement could be challenged and that personal freedom, carefully defended, could shine silently yet unmistakably through every scratch, every hum, and every sunlit reflection. Willow Creek had witnessed the power of one man, one car, and one community's awakening, a narrative destined to echo in the viral corridors of social media, a lesson for homeowners everywhere.